So before we actually start the tech talk, I want to make sure that everyone has joined in the Minga event. The code for the check-in is Tech Talk 2. So I'll wait maybe like 1 minute and then we'll actually begin. All right, so I'd like to introduce Ms. Haya Odeh, and so she is the co-founder and UI and UX designer of Repl.it, and Repl.it is a free collaborative in-browser IDE that allows for real-time collaboration with Google Docs and other editing devices that supports 50+ languages. And is there anything else that you'd like to add on to your introduction?
You already described it well. Okay.
All right. And so this tech talk will be split into 4 segments. The first being design and coding. I first want to ask you what inspired or influenced you to create Repl.it, a widely used online IDE?
Sure. So my co-founder, Amjad Masad, he had a problem and he was at school at the time, in college, and before 2011 there wasn't any way for you to code in the browser, so you had to install the language on the local machines and make sure that everything worked, all the dependencies work, all the packages works. So it was a lot of work, like trying to install the things on your local machines, that for the people who had a machine. So he did not have a machine at the time. So all he had is the lab in the university. So it was very hard for him to code and practice code at the time. So he was thinking about like, how can I solve this problem? He had a problem of going to the lab, find a computer that is vacant or no one is using that computer, install the language that he'd like to practice. And once everything is finished, everything looks good, now it's time to go to class. So he couldn't have time to practice programming. And when he's done class, going back to that computer that he already put all the work on that computer, someone is sitting there and using that computer. So that was very frustrating. So he had at the time like a Nokia phone. Of course, we didn't have that access to smartphone at the time. Was thinking at the time Google was coming up with the cloud and having your docs on the cloud. Why isn't there anything for programming where I can go to a browser and type something and start programming right away? So that when he started thinking about Repl.it idea. So he came into me and we used to work with each other, the same company, startup. And he asked me to design a logo and design interface with him, as trying to find a color palette and a brand. And at the time I was a visual designer. So he says, I would like to call it Repl.it. And I was like, okay, what is Repl.it? So now we're brainstorming, what is the brand? What is the identity? So I started thinking about it with him. Started out as a side project on 2010, and it took time to implement and proof the concept and the idea. We did not have like all that language, of course. It was just a side project for like me, Amjad, and other friend of ours. And then when they proved the concept and it worked, we launched it as an open source project, and it took off in 2011. And once it took off, many startups in Silicon Valley took that side project open source and built on the top of it. This is how it started. But as a company in 2016, once we launched it as a company, the reason why I wanted to co-found Repl.it as a company, because it was already working, and there was many users who were using the product and wanted more. And I'm a user-driven person, and I wanted to give more for education and for people to learn. And every time I went to schools and I went to boot camps to see how people are learning how to code, I saw a lot of struggling with finding the right tools. And by talking to people, I found that they couldn't find a community where they can ask questions openly with having an empathetic answers. So I started to develop an empathy in trying to understand the problem in depth, so I can solve it more and what we can build for the people in the future using Repl.it.
I think it's really amazing how you're able to help so many programmers with your IDE interface. And moving on to the next question, why do you think Repl.it's mission for accessibility for coding and computer science is especially important for our tech-driven world today?
The way we think about our mission, we're super focused on the idea of making people learn and provide the tools, the right tools for them to learn. And that could be on your laptop, that could be on your Chromebook, that could be on your mobile. We think about the best use case scenario if you're rich and you have like a MacBook Pro to use, your MacBook Pro, or you are in a refugee boot camp, in a refugee camp in Jordan or like elsewhere, and you can't like find the right tools. So once you learn all the things that you want to learn, you'd be able to build things on your own, whether it's like your website or your app using Repl.it. And then you can build your own businesses. So it starts from somewhere humble and small, which is learning and giving the people the tools to learn. And then once they grow out of it, they can start building their own businesses.
I definitely agree. I think Repl.it has definitely helped a lot of people make programming a lot more accessible to everyone. And the next question is, how does the role of design play into developing websites, apps, etc.?
How does the, let me, into developing web. So if you're asking about my role in particular, it's tricky because of two things. One of them, I don't heavily code, so I don't have any biases on how I can bridge design into existing code experience. So I question big questions on how we can present things in a way that it's new. So I dream about different stuff, because in my head, whenever, for example, I hit an error, I try to understand why doesn't this error came up maybe earlier, or how can I make it way easier for people who are trying to learn to communicate errors in a better way for them. Maybe it should point out in a certain line. So I start to like think outside the box in a way that it's not completely existing in the real world. So this is hard. And the other thing is, in Repl.it, the tone of the product, it's designed in a way that it talks to beginners and professionals. So it doesn't talk about, the tone is not like beginner tone, and it's not professional tone. It's standard. And to do that, it's very hard to bridge between the two, to make the people who are trying to learn as beginners understand everything and take their hand and understand how the product like could develop with you while you're learning. And at the same time, it's not super like a like a ABCD for professionals. So we have two personalities on the using the product. We have like professionals and we have beginners. So my role as a designer to make the people who are beginners feel good and not intimidated, and feel the professionals, make the professionals feel that this is good enough tool for them for their profession. So this is where design comes in handy, and it's a very challenging job.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like design will be really tricky because you have to make sure that everyone who's using it is knows how to use your app or other platforms, and I feel like you have to balance out making it simple and also accessible for everyone. The last question for this segment, I want to ask, what are some resources you could recommend to an aspiring designer trying to build their portfolio or to expand their skills?
So I think build your own like I don't have a really good portfolio to start with, but it's a taste. It depends on your taste. Like, I'm not sure about tools, but I'm sure about like what is your taste is like. If you I think it should start with yourself and what would you like to reflect. And I think some people, especially designers, we keep postponing and delaying, like I want the perfect portfolio for myself, otherwise I'm not going to have a portfolio for myself out there. You can start to somewhere simple like templates, and there are so many of them, and once you start to develop a taste for yourself, it will come to you. You'll start to develop like a taste for layouts and a taste for certain typographies and other for colors, and then it will start to come to you, oh, I would like to, build my own at some point on Repl.it. But I would suggest just starting small, where you can showcase your work. This is what is the most important bit, showcasing your work in an efficient way based on what you believe. Let's say a designer, and I'm looking for designers to hire. I would pay attention for how it was built more than, or like for if it's responsive design, or if they care about the details that I care about the most. So yeah.
All right, so I think that'll be the end for the first segment, and then we'll be moving on to the second segment about startups. So the first question for this segment, can you briefly explain what Y Combinator is and how Repl.it got accepted?
So Y Combinator is an accelerator. It accelerates the startup world with a startup company. Like if you're a startup and you want to accelerate your startup, meaning if you want to prove if it works, or your idea, if it's going to work or it's not going to work, you usually want to apply to one of these accelerators. I'm having a problem saying that word. But anyways, the idea is like once you get accepted, and there's like now Y Combinator and 500 startups, and there's some of them, but Y Combinator is the most popular one because it used to be very, very hard to get accepted. They only had, once you get accepted, they only accepted in the past 10 to 12 startups. That is like way in the past. That's why it was very hard to get accepted. Then you have one dinner called the Thursday dinners, and everyone connect with everyone else by talking about ideas and what they are building. Once you get accepted, they put you in touch with people who are called partners. Partners, their job is asking you the right questions to open your eyes for things that you did not think of. They're not necessarily, they do not necessarily know more than you, but they definitely have the experience seeing different companies being successful by asking the right questions and guiding them through the process. And now Y Combinator, after they invested, and of course to be accepted, and once you get accepted, they take a percentage of the company of your startup. Once they do, they keep pushing you to become a better company and to make money. And once you do, and you get an IPO, let's say you go public, and your company now it has like a stock option where people can like sell and buy. If your company is successful, they become successful. So Y Combinator made a lot of money from Dropbox, and which went IPO not too long ago. Now they are accepting way more people than they did in the past. Like hundreds of companies are going through Y Combinator, and they divide the dinners to 2 days. So now if you get accepted in Y Combinator, you can meet more people who are working on their ideas. Yeah.
It's really interesting, and it's really amazing how Repl.it was able to be accepted by Y Combinator, considering how competitive it was. Next question, can you describe your experience in Y Combinator, including how the resources or mentors there benefited Repl.it's growth?
Yeah. So once we got accepted, we negotiated our terms. We wanted access to different partners, and we wanted access to PG, Paul Graham, the creator of Y Combinator, because we did not apply for YC. They reached out to us and they asked us to apply. So because they asked us to apply, we asked for different terms. They gave us real good resources with the resources were basically like the partners were nice. The access for program was also nice. I would say they offer also, if you are an ex Y Combinator company, you also have access for that. So you can, it's easier for you to talk to Y Combinator companies like Stripe or Airbnb or Dropbox. Like all of these companies went through the program. So it makes you feel that it's part of like a community. So it's easier to get in touch with them. And another thing is they provide credits for Heroku, which is very important for Repl.it. And we really enjoyed at that time like those credits because it was a lot of money for us to put on these tools, and it really helped us at that time.
Very cool. I definitely feel like Y Combinator is very helpful for companies, especially startups. And the third question is, what steps did you take to popularize and market your platform?
So we went out of our way by going out to schools and going to students and talking to people and, hey, do you know Repl.it, or you don't know Repl.it? We did these visits and phone calls. We also did jams and the hackathons, online jams and hackathons, and giving away prizes for jams and hackathons. Giving away printed shirts and t-shirts for free for people to spread the word out. Marketing is also my job. So it was a lot of thinking on how can we do better in this, and also this is on like on a kind of like a physical end, but there's also the other end, like how people can learn about Repl.it. And that's basically Amjad's job by making SEO pages are way much better, looking for like people when they're searching, how can they find Repl.it easily. So yeah.
Yeah, I feel like marketing and publicizing definitely helped impact Repl.it in a positive way, seeing how widely used it is today. And the last question for this segment is, what are some challenges you face either developing Repl.it or marketing it?
I would say like some of the challenges was early on before YC or being accepted is hiring and finding the right people to work with us, and trying to make our vision noticeable for people and believing in it. That was basically the main challenge. Yeah, but you need to overcome these challenges. You need to get out of your way by giving away free stuff and prove the concept and prove the idea over and over, and do different things and strategies to overcome these challenges, which is, I think it's not part of your question. Yeah.
Very perfectly. I think this will be the end of the first and second segments, and the third and fourth segments will be hosted by Girls Who Code.
Hi, I'm Anusri and I'm from Girls Who Code. So this next segment is about women in technology. So as a woman in tech, how has your experience been like, and have you faced any obstacles as a result of your gender, and like how did you overcome them, if there were any at all?
So I have not, well, I'll start with, I usually don't think about these things I'm very focused on what I do, and I compete with myself. And if I'm good enough, then I'm really good, and no one can ignore that. So I don't think about my gender. I think about how good I am compared to the world, I would say. um, and let's say one of the challenges is basically where I come from on a cultural level, because where I come from is I'm originally from the Middle East. I'm from Jordan. I am from a conservative family, whereas the typical scenario for women once they get married is to have kids and settle in their home and make the home looks very nice with the babies, etc. So that was one of my main challenges. How can I build that and build a company together? Because my co-founder is my husband too. So how can I balance between the two? How can I have both of them? So it's definitely doable, but it's like a scale. Sometimes it goes like this, sometimes it goes like that. And it's on you how you manage it, because you need to manage your life and try to think about your priority, like what are you you know what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so it all breaks down to that. But it's definitely doable, especially if you put it in your head. So yeah.
Okay, so kind of going into a bigger scale, do you think that girls in general face any big challenges in STEM, or does it go back to the same idea?
I'm not sure I understand this question. Can you elaborate?
Yeah, so do girls and women have any obstacles in entering STEM fields or entering a field of technology?
I mean, it depends on the girl herself. If she really wants it, she can get it. Like, there's the tools are out there. We're building tools for that. Um, and it's not limited for certain people and certain genders. I mean, if she really wants it, she can get it. So I don't think so, in my opinion. I mean, we're trying to provide the tools for everyone in Repl.it. So yeah.
Do you have any advice for current students who are trying to pursue computer science or a career in technology?
Yeah, I think most importantly is building side projects. So in Repl.it, we do look for interns all the time. And students in college, they amazes us with their work and with their side projects. And every year we get like more and more surprised with how good they are. So I think building side projects and being part of like hack clubs and part of hackathons and stuff like that could develop a lot of skills, so that when they graduate they just know what they like, know what companies they like, know what they like to work on.
Okay, great. So I think now we're going to be opening it up to a live Q&A. So if anyone has any questions they'd like to ask, you can put it in the chat, or you can use the raise hand feature to, I guess, raise your hand and unmute when called on to ask your question. So if you guys have any questions, you can go ahead and put them in the chat. So a few questions we have here are, One is, how do you gather the right people for the right job? So like, how do you select the right people for your work?
Mm-hmm. We usually do funneling in the interview. So depending on like what kind of job, right? So based on, let's say, like infrastructure engineer or a designer engineer. So we design a challenge for that for you to go through it. If you go through it and then and if you submit like an interesting answer that we really like, so now many of the things that we value, we already like know that you have it. So it starts with this, by trying to understand, okay, first of all, what is the job and what are the challenges? And then we create a problem. And then we ask people to solve this problem. If they solved it, then we'll start looking for other different things by in-person interview. If it's a designer, we create like a design challenge. So it starts from a challenge. And then by knowing that, we create like a funnel. And based on that funnel, we start like checking one by one to know if that person fits the right job and the right role. This is how we go through our interview process, and we try to make sure that people can have different skills to work with each other and get along with each other.
Okay, that's really interesting to know, and I think that's really helpful for us as we aspire to go into some sort of career in tech in the future. In your opinion, is there any super important programming languages that students should be building now or in college?
I just need to add to my answer, my previous answer, that we also look at side projects because it expresses you as a person. So if you are like in design, we will look at your side projects or like how you designed your portfolio, and then we're like, oh, this work is really cool, and then should we put them on our design challenge because they're so cool. And we look at the way that they write, if they write blogs or if they have Instagram or if they, wherever they express themselves, we try to look at their personality and their work. If we really like what they're up to, then we go through the next thing, which is the challenge. If they go through it, then we do like an in-person interview. But I do think that it starts with you on how you express yourself. It doesn't like, companies, it doesn't matter, like you're gonna go through college and then you're gonna have like nice education, and then you're gonna like apply to companies and you might like something that you like, but and then you're gonna like, oh, I want to change like another job for something else. But I think it all breaks down on you. What do you want? Like what do you enjoy the most? We want to be like, and you answer this question by exploring different things here and there, and then you might feel like one year you're in like infrastructure, and the other year you're like in web development, and the other year maybe in iOS, and all this like starts to build up on your portfolio nicely. And then once you apply to companies, they will look at this as like, oh, like we need to reach out for this person. So yeah. You asked the question, which was, what is the most important programming language? We don't think that there's most important programming language. We think, again, it's a way to express yourself. And we try our best to support as many as programming languages on Repl.it to let people express themselves in the best way. Again, one day you might be like coding in Python, the other the next 2 months you're going to be like programming in Go. So as long as it gets the job done and as long as you feel good writing this, then yeah, the goal is done and accomplished.
And then, what do you expect like college students or people who apply for internships? What do you expect them to know when they come in for an interview?
So it depends. So if they are applying for engineering, we expect them at least to solve the problem that is given to them. And that problem can measure how much we expect them to know in advance. And that problem is not designed by me, it's designed by the engineering team. Now, if I am taking designers who wants to intern at Repl.it, I would also like design the problem in a certain way. Like I expect them to know enough about programming. So I can't have a designer who is coming to design developer tools with me and doesn't know GitHub, for example. So we expect like certain knowledge about programming and programmers. Yeah.
Another person asked, what are some challenges that girls in STEM and other computer science industries face, and what are some things students, professors, and other people can help to solve this issue?
So there was like a little bit echo. I did not hear the first bit.
Sorry, I'll repeat it again. So what are some challenges that girls in STEM industries face, and what are some things that students, professors, and other people can do to help solve this issue?
So let me repeat, and let me know if I get it right. Challenges for students in schools, right?
It was challenges girls in STEM-related industries face. Right?
Yeah. So challenges. No, I think I answered this. Now, what are the challenges that girls in STEM? And
yeah. But I think more mainly this is like, what are some things students, professors, and other people can do to help?
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let's see. Something that student. I think taking people under their wing is important. So I try, and we try to take people under our wing and teach them on how some things can work and how they can develop an understanding and how to break into the tech world, or how can they have an internship, or how they. So the more that the more I pass the information to younger girls and they learn and then they pass it to others, I think this is the most helpful bit. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's the end of all the questions as well. So thank you so much for coming today and sharing your stories and experiences. And yeah, and thank you very much for coming. And make sure to follow the CS Girls Facebook and Instagram at IHS CompSci, and the Girls Who Code Instagram and Facebook. And once again, thank you so much, Ms. Odeh, for coming.
Yeah, good luck. Thank you for everything. Yeah. Bye.
Thank you for coming. Thank you.